Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Hi, and welcome to the next session. We've got Sarah, and I hear you actually. Sorry. Sarah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now, yeah.
There we go. I've already introduced you, but I think there's a technical issue, but I'll hand over to you now.
Great, lovely. Hello everybody in the room and hello everyone online. Thank you so much for choosing to spend a bit of time with me this morning. My job today is to be really useful for you and your career. So I want this to feel practically really helpful. You'll notice very quickly we don't share any slides. You're going to see lots of live drawing from me this morning. And really the only rule is you're always allowed to laugh at those drawings. Lower those expectations right now in terms of the quality of the drawings to look forward to. But we do it for two reasons. One, we know it helps the learning to last. So I'm going to share some ideas for action, some tools to try out, some concepts today. And I want those to be memorable. I want you to be able to keep coming back to them, to keep using them in a way that works for you. So we hope it helps the learning to last. Also, we just think it's a more fun way to learn. Just so that you know, after today, we will give you a playlist of things to read, watch and listen to learn more, all linked vast majority free or very low cost, some from us, some from other people. So lots more learning to kind of look forward to, but I hope that you will feel like you kind of learn a lot in the here and now, which is why I was asking if you've got a pen and paper handy, because we are going to do a lot of learning by doing. So just to put our careers into a context, it won't surprise you to hear that this is how we see careers today. They're squiggly. We develop in different directions. We know that on average, people will have 4 or 5 different types of career. And given you've chosen to be in the room today, you're already living and feeling that. You might be planning already. You might have a lot of clarity already about the career that you want to change to, or you might be more in that exploring. I kind of don't know what I don't know. But this will be the reality for everyone. If we used to have a job for life, we now have a life of jobs. And that is whether you're in the room today, whether you are starting out in your career today, that is the same for all of us. And within the context of these squiggly careers, where we do develop in different directions, we need often some new skills. We need to do a bit of unlearning and relearning, because if you're anything like me, I did think my career was going to look and feel much more like this. Kind of, I'm going to climb the staircase, or the kind of classic career ladder. And so sometimes that means that we have to kind of figure out what are the skills that we need. How do we know what our transferable talents are? How do we spot what will be a good fit for us and kind of what won't be? So the areas that we are going to cover today, because I want to dive in pretty fast, we are going to talk about, we're going to start zoomed out and get more and more zoomed in as we go through the kind of 40 minutes together. I'm going to start by sharing a few ways you can think about your career criteria. So if you're thinking about career change, how do you decide what matters most and what sort of you'd ideally like, and it's maybe a bit more on your wish list, but it might be okay to kind of let go of your essentials, your must-haves, and your nice-to-haves. So figuring out your own career criteria, letting go of shoulds, what someone else thinks I should do, or what my manager thinks I should do, and kind of having that defined for yourself. We are then going to think about your transferable talents. So you've got this amazing talent. How can you transfer that talent into lots of different contexts? In my experience, people are quite tough on themselves. They either think they haven't got any transferable talents, or you're your own worst critic. And so what I want us to do is get really good in terms of both clarity and confidence around our transferable talents. So what are they, and how do we talk about them in a way that help our strengths to stand out and show up to other people? Nobody succeeds in a squiggly career by themselves. How can we think about people helping people? The role that other people play in career change is actually particularly critical. So we do lots of work in lots of different types of careers and lots of different work on things like leadership programs or self-awareness programs. But when you are thinking about doing something different, whether that's a small squiggle, a slightly different function, or maybe something you've done previously, or whether that's a really significant squiggle, the people around you make a massive difference. Like we know that is true from kind of lots of research. But if you're more introverted like me, that can feel really hard to make happen. Or you might just think, I believe that, Sarah, but how do I get started? So people helping people. We're then going to talk a bit about how you can be what's called stubbornly adaptive. So I was also reflecting on my own career changes, and I've made some small ones and some big ones. And I think this really matters, because we know that as we go through career change, this is a brain, in case anyone was thinking, it is a brain. We need to be stubbornly adaptive. So we need to figure out, it's a good kind of combination of your career criteria, but what do we do if it feels like we are kind of hitting up against a brick wall? So maybe we do know what we want to do. We're kind of doing all of the right things. I hear this from people sometimes. They're like, but Sarah, I've done all the right things. I've done the reflection for myself, and I've had the right conversations, but I'm just kind of not making any progress. Like, what do we do if we're in that moment? So for some of you, different parts of today might be useful, but I hope there'll be something to kind of take from all of the different kind of moments that we'll do together. And we will have time for questions at the end. I think we'll have about 10 minutes for questions. So we are going to start off with a 1-minute mind map. So this is where pens and paper at the ready. If you can do this by writing, it does actually work better than by doing it on your phone. If you've got nothing to write with, use your phone, use the note section on your phone. Only because we know actually by writing things down, it actually does help our thinking, like the quality of our thinking. And so in your 1 minute, so I'll stop talking for 1 minute. It's very hard for us to reflect and listen at the same time. So I will just pause so you can really think about this. I want you to just create a mind map of what does a successful squiggly career look like for you? So what does a successful squiggly career look like for you? And just jot down all and any of your first thoughts. Typically, I mean, you can do it however you want to. You can do it a list, you can do bullets, you can do a mind map. In a minute, you might connect the odd dot. You might be like, oh, actually, that leads to that. Or you might have a point here that those things lead together. But you cannot get a mind map wrong. That's the good news with a mind map. You cannot get it wrong. But 1 minute just to capture as many thoughts as you've got. Off you go. I'll just time it and just be quiet, just to give you a moment to reflect. Okay, pause you wherever you've got to. And as I said, you can't get this wrong. That's the good news. The reason that I think it is important to start in a zoomed out way is that often we haven't reflected for ourselves of what does success mean to us. We perhaps borrow other people's idea of success or what other people tell us success should look like. And I think having a work in progress success statement as you are thinking about career change is a really useful anchor to keep coming back to. This helps you to start figuring out what mattered most to you in your career. And I think when you do this, it's a dynamic process. So some things will stay the same over time, some things might change. And I would never ask you to do something that I haven't done, but I thought I would just show you this is a more recent one of mine. So mine says, a successful squiggly career means that I'm always learning and exploring new things. It means sometimes doing things that scare me, means being there for the moments that matter with my friends and family, means doing work that has a positive impact on people's careers. So that's not long. It's very individual. It's very personal to me. I've reflected a bit on how my work and the rest of my life sort of fits together. Like, what does that look like? What you start to see in these success statements typically are your values. Your values are what motivate and drive you, and they are a really good filter for your future. Values can feel a bit conceptual, maybe even a bit fluffy, but they are very good for decision making. If you want to make smarter choices for your career, your values are a really good way of thinking about kind of what feels like a really good fit. What are some of kind of the red flags to watch out for? So some of my values you can start to see here. So one of my values is learning. One of my values is ideas. And here I write about new things. Here, this sentence wasn't in my success statement until I had a kid. And where I had to kind of start kind of redefine and do a bit of unlearning and relearning about how does work fit with the rest of my life? What choices am I going to make? I've not always worked in careers and career development. And so I didn't have that last statement. So this is kind of yours to own and develop, but having something written down is really helpful. Some people prefer a visual version of this, so you could just have pictures. I always quite like writing it down because then I feel like I can come back, I can edit it, and I can change it. It's a good way just to start zoomed out before we zoom in a bit more. This exercise is called career scanning. And I think this is a brilliant exercise to do if you're just thinking, I know I want to do something different. I'm very open-minded, but I'm just not sure yet. I kind of don't know what I don't know. And I also think it encourages you to think perhaps more creatively about where your career could take you, and kind of maybe let go of any like fixed assumptions you have about, oh, I'm from the charity sector, so I can only work in the charity sector, or I worked in very big PLC companies, so that means I'll only be good in a big company. So the way that you do this is you go on to LinkedIn or any other job place where you can read job descriptions, and you are going to use job descriptions as data for your development. We're not applying for any of these jobs. We're just sort of borrowing these job descriptions for a moment. And what I want you to do is go away after today and pick at least 5 to 10 jobs that you just think there's something in that job spec that really appeals to you. Please try not to edit yourself too soon when you do this, because we're not applying for them. So I thought I'd show you some that I just picked out. So I've got a volunteer chief learning officer, a director of research and innovation, lecturer there in business and management. This feels very lecture vibes actually, and a visual communication for PwC. So I try to make sure I've got different sorts of, I've got public sector there, I've got volunteering, I've got private sector. Then the key here is to use those job descriptions and to look for threads and themes. The other way to do this is to put those job descriptions into Claude, into GPT, and ask it to do it for you. A watch out if you do that is it will pick out the words that come up most commonly, but they might not be the words that stood out for you. So you might want to do both. You could do both. But if I was doing this, let's just make this bigger. I hope you can all see this on screen, okay? If I was reading the top of this job spec, the things that appeal to me about this are pioneering innovation. Keep reading, ignore the bits that don't stand out. Create the strategy. Keep reading. And probably this idea of learning experience. So it's not the fact it's a charity. It's not the fact that I'd be working with young people or volunteering or any of those very good causes. The words I picked out are pioneering innovation, it's strategy, it's learning experience. That's why I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let's compare that to going to work for PwC, so a very different kind of organisation. Here, actually, we always say talents over titles, but I did think, oh, I wonder what a visual communicator is. And then when I look at this job spec, the words I like here are concepts, are creative ways to tell stories. I love ideas. That word concept comes up again. Visual strategy. You can start to see things coming up, words coming up, phrases coming up. And I have done this exercise. The first time I did this exercise, and this will date me in a very unavoidable way, I used to cut job descriptions out of newspapers because that's where job descriptions. So yeah, you are completely allowed to laugh at that. So I remember doing this, and what it showed me was the thing that was important to me about any job was actually not the team I worked in. I worked in marketing, but it wasn't marketing. It was actually the ability to have ideas. I really like a blank piece of paper. I love starting from scratch. I've got a track record of doing jobs that nobody has done before. And I started to realise that actually I needed to do more like squiggle and stay in the organisations that I was in. I liked the companies that I worked in, but I was like, actually, I don't need to stay in this part of marketing. I could go and work in corporate affairs, which is what I did. I could go and work in corporate responsibility. I can go and work in strategy. The things that motivate me are more about the sort of, is it projecty? Do you need to start something? Is there quite a lot of unknowns? Those jobs are the jobs that I really enjoy. So my career criteria is about ideas. It's usually about strategy. It's about starting stuff. And I have done this exercise so many times over the years, and those things have stayed pretty constant, because the constants that we have in our squiggly careers where there's loads of uncertainty and change tend to be are ultimate motivators. Those values, those things that motivate and drive us, those things actually do tend to stay pretty much the same. Doesn't matter where you are or kind of what you're working on. So what this will kind of help you to do is work out what your career criteria might be. I also hope it might give you some confidence about your transferable talents, because you will see, as we get onto transferable talents in a moment, that those talents will start to show up in lots of different kind of roles. So I hope it helps you to kind of feel less limited from kind of where you've been and open up more opportunity in terms of where you might go. Also, it's really fun to have a play with job descriptions without the pressure of having to then apply for the job. And top tip for when you are applying, do remember most job descriptions, and it's a little bit of a bugbear for me, tend to read like wish lists. So particularly if you are changing careers, a job description can feel very intimidating and daunting. It feels like that even if you already do the thing. So, you know, sometimes those things are true. You do need X amount of years of experience, but often it is still worth having a conversation or exploring a bit. Try not to be too put off by job descriptions, just generally, because I think people just list everything they would like from a perfect person that doesn't actually exist. So thinking about your transferable talents, back to our pens and paper. 1 minute. I'm going to give you a little bit of a forcing function here. In 1 minute, I would like you to write down 10 transferable talents that you've got. I'd like you to aim for 10. And to help you with getting to 10, think about your hows, not your whats. What am I doing right now? Delivering a workshop about hopefully helping people with their careers. How am I doing that? Hopefully I'm doing that by being practical, by sharing in a creative way, learning. How do I get my job done generally? Well, I'm a good creative thinker. Maybe you're really good at collaborating. Maybe you're a problem solver. With whatever kind of work you do, and even if you don't work today, think about how do you find your way through your week? Because actually, when I talk to some of my friends and actually my partner who doesn't work now, if I think about how he navigates his week and how he navigates kids and dogs and like all of the other things, you've got just as many hows. So it's not kind of reliant on being in a job today. We all have hows that help us through our week. And when you run out of ideas, like I said, because we are our own worst critics, think about what would your best friend say about you? Somebody who is a supporter of yours, a champion and a kind of cheerleader of yours, your friend, a parent, a sister, someone who thinks you're brilliant as you actually are. If I said to them, what makes Kate so brilliant in terms of how she lives her life or how she does her job, a friend from work, like what would they say about you? Might just make the list a little bit longer. Give you 1 minute, aim for 10, even if you don't feel very confident about them. Off we go. Okay. And just about see the room. Can you just give me a wave when I get to how many you got to in that time? So let's have no hands for one. Tell me we all got beyond one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 8, 9. Great, 10. Yeah, okay, brilliant. I think I saw quite a lot around 7, 8, 9, 10, which is brilliant. So we got to some hows. So this is what makes you uniquely useful. We have to start thinking about, for any job, whether we're doing what we've done before or whether we want to do something really quite different, what makes me uniquely useful? Now, you've hopefully now got a longer list, and you might just want to circle, what are the 1 or 2 here that you really think make you uniquely useful? So maybe it's number 2 and maybe it's number 6. In terms of people's strengths that have an overwhelming impact in the jobs that they do, it actually doesn't tend to be a long list. It's usually 2 or 3 things that actually makes that person particularly useful in the job that they do. Having a longer list is great to start from, but then really starting to think about, what are those things that you kind of want to be known for? What are the things that you want to build a reputation for and be recommended for? Now, the bit that people miss is, we've done this and that's great. And now what we want to do is kind of almost let go of ourselves for a second. I mean, that looks like a Victorian shoe / trainer. So the point here is we are going to walk in other people's shoes. I will write the word as well, because that's such an awful shoe. This is the bit that we tend to see people struggle with or perhaps get wrong. Because maybe people turn up to an interview or you turn up to a conversation and you can talk about your strengths. But what we are sometimes not as good at is walking in the shoes of where you want to go. So if I say, well, I'm a really good ideator, I'm great at coming up with new ideas, I'm really good at starting things from scratch. That's great, and that's what makes me uniquely useful. But if I'm then thinking about a career change, so if I'm thinking about moving from marketing to corporate affairs, which is something I did, or if I'm thinking about moving from working in a big PLC to running my own company, which is something else I also did, I then need to think, well, how is that going to be helpful for where I want to go? So what are the challenges that they are trying to solve? What are the problems that are most important to them? How can that be helpful? And this is where I think the closer you can get to understanding where you want to go, the better you will be at, you don't need to have done a job before, but you can start to connect the dots. You need to connect the dots between what makes you uniquely useful, kind of where you want to go. And we sometimes hope that other people can do it for us, but in my experience, you have to do it for them. Because people can still be a bit black and white about, they're used to interviewing people who have probably done a similar thing before. And so if you're doing something different, I think we kind of have to make that extra effort to show, sure, we might not be the sort of most obvious answer to this role, but we can actually talk about kind of why we're going to be particularly useful. And almost if you can understand, what matters most in that team, how you bring something that's different and kind of complementary. I don't ever think you have to kind of pretend to be able to do something that you can't. And I think if you don't have that experience, you just don't have that experience. When I moved to corporate affairs, there was loads of other people who would have been more technically better suited to that job, who had much more expertise and specialism in that area. So the thing I had to bring was my house, but I wanted to sort of show how it was going to be helpful in their world, rather than just me talking about me in my world. So just kind of making that connection, connecting those dots, I think feels really important. And I will include a podcast for you on how to talk about your transferable talents that kind of might be helpful if that feels useful for you. Let's talk people helping people. This is how we define networking. And there are 2 different types of ties. You might have come across this before, but it's useful to think about, particularly in the context of career change. So there are strong ties. These are the people who are previous managers, mentors. These are the people who know your strengths. They might sponsor you, they might advocate for you, they'll give you really good advice because they know you. They will build your beliefs. They're great in terms of things like confidence. If you need someone to tell you, to remind you how good you are. Conversations with these people, really, really important. You've then got what's sometimes described as weak ties, or I prefer the word more kind of distant, because when we say kind of weak, it sort of implies they're not as important. But for career change, we know weak ties are more important. All the kind of evidence shows that obviously if we want to do something that is different to what we are doing today, often these people kind of know what we know, maybe in the same communities. And so, like I say, great for confidence, they're great as a sounding board, they're great supporters. But these are the people who know things that we don't know and know people that we don't know. And so we want to spend time with new people and having different kinds of conversations. Now, if you are more introverted like I am, I sort of go principle, great, I understand that makes sense. Practice, well, how am I going to do that? I am never the person on LinkedIn who is going to send a cold LinkedIn message ever. I'm never going to do it. So what you can do though is ask your strong ties for connections to new people. So this is where it's really simple, but getting used to saying, do you know anyone who? I'm really interested in learning about like moving into the charity sector for the first time. Do you know anyone who might be able to help me with that? Do you know anyone with any experience in the charity sector? Never assume who knows who or who knows what. As long as you know the end of that ask, people will try to help you. People really enjoy helping people. They feel valued, they feel useful. And it's amazing how when you start to have these kind of conversations, people will often, this is the dream scenario, also offer to make an introduction. Oh yeah, one of my really good friends works in charities. With me, I'd be like, oh well, I don't, but my sister works for Samaritans. I'm sure she'd have a chat with you. Do you want me to introduce you? The introduction is the introvert's dream. Now, you might be in that room thinking, well, that's fine because I'm more extroverted. Again, in which case, brilliant. Spend time in new places, new networks, new communities, but be really specific about your asks. And as much as you can, start having curious career conversations. I set myself the goal of having one curious career conversation every month with someone I've not met before. And I don't want to change my career now. I'm doing a job that I love, but I do want to keep my opportunities and possibilities open. And I'm always interested in new things, as you've kind of heard from me a few times. And so I also don't want to get stuck in a bit of an echo chamber trap of people who kind of know the same people. And a curious career conversation, it's low key, it's informal, it can be 15 minutes, it can be online, and you're just trying to get a window into people's world. If you are thinking about career change, but you don't know lots about that team or that area or that industry, curious career conversations is the single best way to go from I don't know what I don't know to at least now I know what I don't know. And sometimes you have those curious career conversations and you realize, actually, maybe that's not quite as good a fit as I had anticipated. That's time well spent, not time wasted. Or sometimes the more you learn, the more you want to do something. And then you can start to get really specific. Okay, well, what could I learn that could really help me to make that move? What gaps have I got? And how might I do something to start to kind of to close those gaps? Albeit, you can't make up 10 years of experience in an area you've not been in, but you can start to do some kind of learning. You can start to create connections. You can think about other networks that would be useful to be part of. So I'd really encourage you to kind of think a little bit about this. Now, how can we be stubbornly adaptive? So you do all those things and you're like, well, Sarah, I have taken ownership. I've taken all of the actions. I've listened to the podcast. I've done all the tools. But I feel like I'm hitting a bit of a brick wall. There are no jobs or I'm not getting interviews. It's feeling very hard. And once you're in that very final bit of applying for jobs, we know that can feel really quite draining. It can feel really exhausting. And this is the thing that I have found kind of most helpful is when faced with a kind of tough reality, ask yourself, what do I want to hold on to? And what am I prepared to let go of? So what do I want to hold on to and what do I want to let go of? most career change happens in small incremental actions, which, you know, it would be better if it was a big silver bullet and you're like, if we all did this, we could all get to where we want to go. But if I think about my most significant career change, which is doing what I now do today, it was a 7-year process. Now, that was 7 years, and I was enjoying other things I was doing over those 7 years. But it took me quite a long time to get to the point of feeling like I could leave working for someone to I'm going to run a company. It felt so different to what I'd done before. And so I had to start figuring out what's stopping me. What do I want to hold on to? What am I prepared to let go of? And again, in big organizations where sometimes jobs weren't working out for me or career change wasn't working out for me, in big companies like Barclays or Sainsbury's where I was working, again, using this model of really figuring out, okay, this is the reality. This is very much a kind of realist, pragmatic view. This is the reality I cannot change or I can't control. I've applied for 3 jobs in that team and I haven't got them. You're like, okay, you're not getting those roles. Right. Well, what mattered most to me about those roles? What might I need to let go of for now? For now is not the same as forever. So it is okay to make that choice. And when we sometimes make those choices of what we want to hold on to and what we want to let go of, it puts us back in control. So there's probably something outside of our control that's annoying us and feeling very frustrating and really hard. But when you start to make choices about how to kind of cope with that or what you're going to do in response to that, you take back a bit of control. And this is where practically, I think embracing the bridge makes a difference, depending on what you're kind of trying to do with career change. Because I think we don't go from sort of 0 to hero with career change. I don't start over here. I didn't start over here working in, I work in marketing in Sainsbury's. And then, do you know what? Then I went straight over here. And then now, I just run my own company and I now work in a completely different sector. So I now work in learning, development and career. That didn't happen. What happens is inevitably there are all these kind of small actions and bridging roles can be really helpful. So I did do a bridging role. I moved out of Sainsbury's and I went to work as a managing director, which was kind of my big bridging role. I went to be a managing director working for 2 co-founders, much, much smaller organization, but still bigger than Amazing If is today. And it was definitely a bridging role. And I don't think I would have had the confidence to move into Amazing if I hadn't done the bridging role. Now, that bridging role didn't go that well for me. I worked out pretty quickly. I didn't want to work for founders. I wanted to be the founder. And actually, I missed some of the things about Sainsbury's. Like I really enjoyed working in really big companies. And so actually, I found it hard. It wasn't like that went really well. But those bridging roles can help you to just stress test like what is right for me. And I definitely could, if I wasn't going to do Amazing If, I would have gone back. I would have gone back into big company. That medium-sized company context wasn't such a good fit for me. I sort of missed the scale and the impact. But actually what it helped me with was having the confidence that it was worth trying out running Amazing If, what was holding me back was all mindset really, rather than kind of skill set, was just being brave enough to give it a go. And my last top tip on kind of that, when you are making decisions, if you're sort of quite far down this process and you're trying to figure out what's the right thing, the thing that helped me kind of cross the bridge, like take those last 10 steps or whatever it might be, was doing best, okay, and worst case scenario planning. And I think sometimes we underestimate how helpful that can be. So best case scenario you can do quite quickly because you've probably already imagined that. An okay case scenario is helpful because realistically, that's probably what's most likely to happen. And then in your worst case scenario, it's not just about outlining the scenario, it's having both the obstacle and the action. So my worst case scenario would have been, I go to Amazing If and it just doesn't work. I think it's something like 80% of new businesses fail, don't they, within 5 years or whatever. And so you're like, well, it's not that unlikely that you start a business and it doesn't work, or you enjoy it, but you don't make enough money, or whatever it might be. So that's the kind of the obstacle. What's the action? By that point, I was like, well, actually, I do feel confident enough that from my network back in marketing, someone would give me a job that meant I earned enough. Might not be the perfect job, might not be exactly the job that I really wanted to do, but would I still be able to pay my mortgage and incredibly expensive childcare as it would have been at that time? Yes. And I think never kind of apologize for working out those real basics and essentials, because until I worked out the worst case, I then started to think, do you know what? If I don't do this, I will regret not trying. I think I am now, I'd rather try and fail than not try at all. So I'll do it. And the worst case is I knew I got enough money to pay myself for a year, because I had to pay myself from day one. So back to being very realistic about what you've got to hold on to, what you've got to let go of. I had no option other than I have to pay myself from day one. So I did have to kind of make sure that that was in place first. If it all falls down, hey, I'll go and talk to some of those people, and there's enough jobs in marketing. I think I'll be able to get one. So we're going to go to questions now from the group. I really hope that has been useful. After today, I think things, so as well as that playlist, we will send you a free values kit. That's definitely worth spending some time on if you're kind of thinking about that career criteria, what matters most. We also have some free skill sprints. The last one we did was on AI, so how you can use AI to think about your strengths, network, confidence, and possibilities. Again, that's all free. So I'd really encourage you to perhaps go through that. It's 10 minutes a day for 5 days, so hopefully it feels quite realistic. You can always email me. I'm sarah@amazingif.com. On our website, there's a whole section of free resources. Please make the most of those. And we've done over 500 podcast episodes, and we have done some specific episodes on career change that I will put in your playlist. If after today you'd really like to support us, my one ask is this is our next book, which is called Learn Like a Lobster. Fascinating facts about lobsters. They never stop growing. They grow the most in a hard moment when they shed their old shells, and they fuel their own growth because they keep those old shells as a snack, because they are full of calcium. And so the book is about how to lead your own learning, how to learn in hard moments, and how to learn as you go. So it's very practical, full of tools and techniques. It is out in February, but if you pre-order it now, and then you email us your pre-order, you get to join the Lobster Library straight away, which has free live workshops exactly like today, and loads of tools to try out. So you can actually start learning straight away. You kind of get some of the content from the book straight away, if that feels useful for you. We'll move over to questions. Please feel free to put them in the chat. I can see the chat, and then we'll go around the room too. Thank you.
Can you hear us, Sarah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks a million. My name is Aisling. My question was, did you know that your bridging role was a bridging role? Because if you're not entirely sure about that exact end point and what it looks like, how can you strategically take the mini steps? Sometimes the mini step sort of is just the next step without knowing exactly what the end goal is.
Lovely question, Aisling. Thank you. So I think there are two things with bridging roles. I think you can do them for two different reasons. I don't think you have to know where you're going. I had a bit of a test case in my mind. Do I want to go and run Amazing If? But I don't think you have to have that. I think there are two things to think about with bridging roles. One bridging role reason can be, I want to do more of this kind of thing and less of this kind of thing. So you're going into a bridging role, which might not be all of what you want, but it has more of what you want than you have today. Reason number one. Second reason for doing a bridging role is you want to get experiences that you don't have today. That's why I did a bridging role. If you ask yourself, what do I want to be true in 12 months' time that isn't true today? When I did that, I was like, actually, I want to work in a smaller company. I want to work for some founders. I want to feel what a very different environment feels like to massive, massive companies. And I knew just by doing those roles, though I was going to gain those experiences, those things were going to be true. So it was more for me, it can be about doing more of what you really enjoy, or it can be about closing gaps that you've got. And mine was more about closing gaps that I've got to kind of see whether that felt like a good kind of fit. So I think you can definitely do roles where you are aware enough to know, well, it might not be the perfect choice or exactly what I think I'll end up doing, but it's definitely giving me some things that I've kind of not got today. More of the good stuff or helping to close those gaps. Good question.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
My question is, have you ever in an interview had to use the term bridging role? Do you think it's okay to package these different types of experiences and say, I've done this because it's a, you know, I've seen it as a bridging role? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So I wouldn't, if I was applying for a bridging role, I wouldn't tell people that's what, oh, I'm doing this for my own reasons, for my own purposes. So I think what you're saying though is if you're kind of moving beyond the bridging roles and you're kind of explaining, the kind of what you do, then I would absolutely do that. I would say, so I think it's always really good to be clear about why you've done a role and what you gained from it. So, you know, I'm still friends with that founder that I went to work for, and it didn't work out that well. I don't think I was that good in that job. But when I kind of then thought about if I'm going to talk about that time, I'm very honest about kind of, it gave me experiences that I hadn't got. Maybe because you got to work at a different scale or with different groups of people. I would sort of almost focus on what did you gain from that experience that is then going to be useful for that job that you are kind of now talking about. I think people who are reasonable understand that, like, it's absolutely fine to have a job that isn't perfect, because everybody has had a job that most jobs, no job is perfect. So I think it's kind of okay to sometimes explain in quite a transparent way, well, this is why I took that role, because I really wanted to get some experiences in this area, or I was aware that I'd got a gap here, so I really wanted to kind of dive in to do that. I was actually talking to somebody only yesterday who was moved from a massive media company to a smaller but very well-known entrepreneurial brand, and 50% of it is working, 50% of it clearly isn't. And what she was saying to me is, like, I keep reminding myself, like, what this is giving me, like kind of what I'm gaining. And I can tell she's probably not going to stay in that role that long. But then she'll be able to talk really clearly about kind of all the things that she's learned that she didn't have before, as a result of kind of making that move. So yeah, I think it's a good thing to talk about that.
Brilliant, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, thank you for that. It's been really, really useful. Do you have any advice or resources on your website about when you have quite a few ideas and you can't decide between them? For new. Did you hear me?
I did. I heard it. And you have quite a few ideas. Is it that you've got quite a few ideas and you can't make your mind up?
Yeah, for new career routes, and which one is the most suitable or likely to succeed, or you know.
Yeah, great question. And that's definitely me, because I'm always like, oh, that's interesting. That could be interesting. Especially if you're more of a generalist, I think. And I think you also go through different stages in your squiggly career. I am the most specialist now that I've ever been. It's actually much more typical that people go specialist to generalist, but I was a generalist for a very long time. I think there are different ways to, I call it like try before you apply. And I think that's a really smart thing to do. So I think if you can get involved in projects with the team that you think is interesting, if you can do your own, like Amazing If was a side project for a long time. You don't have to have a side project, but I think it was very helpful for us. If you can get involved in communities, if you can find small ways to sort of be part of those different things that you're considering, I think often then you do start to kind of figure out, oh, I'd like to do even more of that. And then you kind of get drawn to the possibilities that feel like a really good fit. I know time is hard for this, but I do think volunteering is really helpful. And even if that's volunteering for like a one-off thing, or in a one-off way, that anything that gets you closer to exploring those ideas in a concrete way. You can't think your way to career change. I think you act your way to career change. So as many small actions as you can take, and knowing that just because you don't do something now doesn't mean you can't come back to it, I think is really helpful. For a while, I spent a bit of time with people who have investment in their company, so they raise money as part of running their company, and that was kind of a group of people I was like learning from. And the more I learned about that, the less I wanted to raise money, because I was like, wow, this seems like it's really time consuming, it's really stressful. I love the fact that me and my co-founder Helen, we own our company, get loads of control. I love being in control. And so actually that was something I think we were thinking a bit more about. And actually by being kind of part of those communities, it made me want to kind of do it less. So yeah, try before you apply, small actions. Do you want me to take a few of the questions that I can see in the chat?
I think we've only got time for one more in the room.
Okay, from the room, sorry, or do you want me to pick one?
In the room, I think.
Okay.
I've got a message in the chat.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask about transferable skill, what you were talking about with transferable skill. And when you're applying for jobs, and what you mentioned really resonated, which was about job descriptions can be quite daunting.
Yeah.
When you're putting together your CV, it's often AI, it's scanned through AI. So how would you put that across if they don't, for example, ask for a covering letter?
Yeah, really good question. I think somebody did ask that in the chat as well. So hooray, two people asking the same question. I do think if you can, I know this is not always possible. I think if you can have conversations with people in terms of jobs or opportunities, if you are doing bigger career changes, I think that can kind of help you. It's a different way of thinking about the kind of the AI challenge. If you can't, I know that's not always possible. But I think when I was thinking about career changes that I've done where I was less in control, like in companies and things, having conversations helped, because I think it gives people confidence in you and your abilities. And people buy people, you don't buy a kind of bit of paper. Often we can't do that because you've got to apply for kind of something online. I don't know if any of you have seen the video online where a student she wrote a CV that was complete nonsense, but she took all the keywords and she wrote really inappropriate things to test whether the CV would make it through the system. It did. And it said things like, I go out drinking 5 times a night, but then she'd put in the key. So she'd basically done some like coding and put in the keywords. Now, you've got to hope the systems are better than that one in that example. And I think that is really demoralizing that you can do that and get through the process. What I would do practically, if you can't do a covering letter, is I would look for keywords. I would look for repeated words in a job description. And then I would really focus on making sure my summary was really kind of tight and had those kind of keywords in. I would also be looking for, can I get anyone to introduce me to anyone who can write a recommendation for me? I'm sure, I know there's a session on it actually later today. Make sure things like your LinkedIn works really hard for you. When we recruit people, it's something like 90% of people look at people's LinkedIn before they recruit them for a role. And I would always do that. And I still think lots of people's LinkedIn people are missing a trick of not having a decent summary, get some recommendations. That's like the secret bit of LinkedIn that people don't spend enough time on, because people writing you recommendations that feel really specific to you. Go onto my one and go and read my recommendations. It's not just a generic, Sarah is amazing because I'm her best friend, so I've written something nice about her. I think if you read my recommendations, you can tell from my managers and people I've worked with, I'm not good at everything, but the things that I am really good at, I'm really good at. And I think if someone was recruiting me now, if you were recruiting me now and you read those, I think that would help my transferable talents to kind of stand out. So I'd always be thinking about, can kind of other people sell your story for you a bit as well? But I don't think there's an easy answer, unfortunately, to kind of some of the AI systems doing that filtering at the moment.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That's the end of our session.
If anyone's got any other questions, please email me and I'll answer them via email. I know there were more questions in the chat that we've not got to. You might have had questions you also didn't want to ask in the room. If you email me, I promise I will answer you. Maybe not today because I am getting a new puppy. So it might not be soon, and I'm very excited about it. So I'll be doing that the next day, but then I'll be back online. Bye everyone.